And so we come to the end of Acts chapter 19 today with verse 32 through 41. Interestingly enough, some versions don't put the number 41 in there, as we'll see in a second. What's happening as we begin in verse 32 is there's a riot going on in Ephesus. Paul's missionary journey has been so successful that it's cutting into this silver idol business. And a guy named Demetrius and his artisans have, in effect, started a riot, upset about what Paul has been doing. And so we join the crowd rioting in verse 32. Therefore, on the one hand, others were crying out something other, indefinite pronoun there. This is the imperfect of kradzo, imperfect active indicative third plural of kradzo. They were crying out something else, like eat at Joe's, I like peas, whatever else they're crying out. Some are crying great is Artemis of the Ephesians, but they just know, hey, there's a crowd, there's a mob going on. Let's get part of this. For the crowd was confused. Here we have, I always mention this passage when I'm teaching inductive Bible study, because here we have the consummate example of the etymological fallacy. What a word means is not necessarily tied to what it has meant in the past. Now, yes, the immediate past, yes. The way words are used now is a function of how words are being used right now in language, and how words are being used right now is a matter at least of the recent history, But in terms of the long history, 400 or 500 years ago, or sometimes even 50 years ago, or a matter of breaking down the words. So like ecclesia comes from ek, which means out of, and kaleo, which means called. And so sometimes you'll hear people say, the church is the ecclesia, those who are called out of the world. And I'm not saying not to do that, because that's a good illustration. Just know that that's not what anyone at the time of Paul probably would have thought. Nobody said, oh, I'm using the word ecclesia, and that means we're called out. An ecclesia, by the time of Paul, was simply a group that had gathered. And you see here, it's being used of a mob. These are those who have been called out to protest Artemis. No, there's no intentionality to a mob. A mob just kind of swirls. In fact, they're confused. They don't even know why. Let's look at the rest of the sentence here. And the majority did not know because of what they had come together. And so this is not an intentional coming together or a purposeful coming together or meant. It's not cognitive. They're gathering. They're just a mob. And so this is the consummate example of the fact that what a word means is a function of how it's being used right now in ordinary language. And so the fact that ecclesia in history used to mean, I don't know how long it meant that. It meant an assembly for centuries. The fact that in its origin, somewhere in dark Greek history, this came together from called out, has nothing to do with the way the word is used on this particular occasion. It's a mob for the crowd. So this is the consummate example of the etymological fallacy. The history of the meaning of a word does not determine necessarily what the word means today. It can illustrate, but it doesn't determine. For the crowd was confused. So this is a periphrastic, a form of the verb to be with a participle. Ein is imperfect of ami. And then this is perfect because keys, breathy keys, reduplicate with their unvoiced palatal equivalent. And so it reduplicates with a kappa. So this is from sunkeo. Men are passive or middle participles. So this is a perfect passive participle, nominative feminine singular. It's nominative feminine singular because it's matching ecclesia. So the crowd was having been confused. And the majority of them, and the most people, this is a substantive, there's no noun there, but we could put a plural people, anthropoi, with it if we wanted. The majority did not know because of what they'd come together. This is the past tense of oida. Oida is a weird word. People say oida is perfect in form, but present in meaning, whatever that means. I have some ideas of what I mean by that. But this would be past tense, or pluperfect in form, past perfect in form, but past tense in meaning. They did not know. So this is a pluperfect form or a past perfect form. And the epsilon iota, I think, is the key there for pluperfect. Because of what or why? This is a peculiar preposition, heneka. Most prepositions in Greek come before the word they go with. This is an example of one of the rare prepositions in Greek that comes after the word it goes with. So it's literally of what, because of what, why. And this is the interrogative pronoun. What? Okay, and this preposition takes the genitive. So tinos is in the genitive. Because of what they had come together. So elelutha is the perfect form of erchomai. So this is from sunerchomai. Elelutha, so the theta is part of the stem. And then ason, son is a third person plural ending. It kind of looks like a participle to me. So the majority did not know because of what. No, it's third plural, isn't it? Because of what they had come together. Them having come together. Man, I should have thought this through better. I know that this is the perfect stem, okay, I did a quick lookup. This is in fact pluperfect. And so the epsilon iota, I mentioned that over here. The epsilon iota tells us that it's pluperfect. It doesn't have an augment for some reason, but the pluperfect is a little weird like that, the past perfect. And that's where the had comes from. They had come together. So it is pluperfect, active, indicative, third plural from sunerchomai. They had come together. They didn't know for what reason they'd come together. Verse 33. And from the crowd, they instructed Alexander. Who's the they? Well, I assume it's the Jews here. It's kind of this is a strange sentence. Took me a while to figure it out, but it's basically, and from the crowd, they instructed Alexander, the Jews having pushed him forward. Okay, so this is a aorist because of the sigma alpha. Aorist, there's the augment, from sun bibadzo. Aorist, active, indicative, third plural, sun bibadzo, or sum bibadzo. They, the Jews, pushed Alexander. They instructed Alexander, the Jews having pushed him forward. So this is a genitive absolute here, a noun in the genitive and a participle in the genitive. My aunt is an active participle. Bal is the aorist of balo, to throw forward. And no, I did the etymology there. It works in this case, but it wouldn't have to. It's not determinative. It can be illustrative, but it's not necessary. So yes, they did thrust him forward. They did cast him forward. It works in this case, but you cannot. It doesn't definitively work that way. They thrust him forward, having thrust him forward, and Alexander having motioned the hand. So sigma alpha indicates aorist. This is aorist active participle, nominative masculine singular, from kata seidzo, I would say, something like that. Kata saio. He motioned with the hand. He was wanting to defend to the people, to the crowd. This is apologetics. He's wanting to defend. It's an infinitive because of the I. It's a middle, I would say, a middle infinitive. So he's wanting to defend. Apparently, the Jews are under hot water too, because the crowd can't tell the difference between the Jews and the Christians here. Verse 34, and having recognized that he is a Jew, again, gano, I gano that this is aorist. It's a participle because of aunt, aorist active participle, nominative masculine singular, nominative masculine plural, from epigenosko. You can tell it's aorist because it's missing some letters from epigenosko. So gano is a shortened version of it, which is a telltale sign of an irregular aorist. So having known that he is a Jew, or that he was a Jew, the voice became one. So now they were confused, but now they all start crying out, great is the Artemis of the Ephesians. This is, again, we've seen this over and over again. It is the aorist of ginomai, right? From everyone, for about 2 hours. They're crying for about 3 hours, crying, great is Artemis, the Artemis of the Ephesians, present participle here with chrodzo. Okay. And the clerk, the scribe, and the clerk, having quieted the crowd. So this is, again, an aorist participle, nominative masculine singular. It's katastello, and in the present, it would have two lambdas, and it would not have this internal lengthening in the middle. So it's an aorist active participle, nominative masculine singular, and the clerk, having quieted the crowd, says, quote, direct discourse, capital letter, men, Ephesians, for who is of men, who is of people, who does not know the city of Ephesus being temple bearer of the great Artemis and of the thing that fell from heaven. Again, not a great English sentence, but it works in Greek, right? Relative pronoun, relative clause, who does not know, present, active indicative, the city, being, this is the present participle of eimi, that the city of Ephesus is the god bearer of the great Artemis and of the, now this is a strange word. It means fallen from heaven, diopetes, of the thing that fell from heaven. Apparently there must have been an asteroid or a meteor or something that was taken to be a sign from Artemis. I imagine deep in the distant past of Ephesus. Verse 36. Therefore, these things being beyond dispute, this is an adjective, anantiritas, not a frequent word. Acts uses so many low-frequency words in the New Testament. These things being clear, it is being necessary for you, having calmed down, to be. You guys need to calm down. This is the participle of day. It is necessary. This is a participle. It is necessary for you, accusative, being calmed down. This is the perfect passive participle of katastello, same word that we had up here. But this is the participle. Men are passive participles. And it's the perfect form. Katestal menos. Okay. This is the infinitive of huparko, to become. For you to become, calm down. And to do, present active infinitive, to do nothing crazy. Propates. Don't do anything reckless. Verse 37. For you led the men these, you meant these men here. Remember, who were the two? One was Gaius, I believe, and who was the other one? We can go back and look here. Gaius and Aristarchus of Macedonia. There's the theater where this is taking place, by the way. You've led these men who are neither temple stealers nor ones who blaspheme our goddess. So these people haven't done anything today. Why are you upset with them? You have no legal basis for this. This is a present participle, blasphemeo. My aunt is an active participle, present active participle, accusative, masculine, plural. These men are not ones who blasphemed our goddess. Verse 38. Therefore, on the one hand, if Demetrius and the artisans with him have a cause, have a logos, have a charge against someone, Paul, the courts are led. You know, there's courts in session, and there are procurators. There are Roman governors here in Ephesus. Let them charge one another. So Paul has something at Demetrius. Demetrius sends to Paul. Let's go ahead and have some charges brought officially the legal way. So this is a if clause, a conditional clause. So this is the protasis, if blah, 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 blah. Present active indicative there. Then this is the apodosis, the then part. The courts are led. The agora, and in the agora, I assume, that's where the courts were held. That's certainly where it was in Corinth, right? At the agora, Paul is led before the bema, before Gallio. Procurators are, so this is the Is this the third time we've seen a procurator? We saw one on Cyprus, and we saw one in Corinth. And now we're seeing a procurator in Ephesus. This is an imperative, a third-person plural imperative, to, te, tosan, or to, te, tosan in the chart. Third-person plural imperative. Let them drag one another. Let them charge one another. Let them accuse one another. Present imperative, by the way. Verse 39. And if you are seeking something further, it will be done in the lawful. Let it be done in the lawful. It will be done in the lawful assembly. So this is epiluo, which means what does it mean? Epiluo is to settle. It will be settled in a legal assembly. Here again, assembly, ecclesia, is a court gathering, a gathering of the court. This is theta eta, so it's theta eta sigma is future passive. Theta eta tells me it's passive, the sigma tells me it's future, the epsilon tells me it's indicative, and tie tells me it's third person singular from epiluo. It will be settled in the lawful assembly. Verse 41, for even we are in danger to be accused of a riot, of sedition, concerning today. No cause being, genitive absolute, concerning which we will not be able to give an account concerning this uproar. We're not going to be able to defend ourselves. Double negative here. I think there are actually some manuscripts that take the "u" out because it seems to be unnecessary. Concerning which we will be able is much better translation. And so there are some manuscripts that generally you consider original the more difficult reading because it's more likely that people will have corrected things than messed them up. And so no cause being, this is a genitive participle. It's present active participle. This is an infinitive here. This is present indicative. This is the future of dunamai, so it's deponent. Future deponent indicative, first plural. This is the aorist infinitive of apodidomi, to repay an account concerning this uproar. And then some manuscripts, or that is, some versions number this and some versions don't. The Greek is the same in all the manuscripts. But for whatever reason, some translations have the number and some translations don't. And so that's why this is in brackets, because some, is it verse 41 or is all of this verse 40? That's the question. So my Greek New Testament here doesn't have a verse 41, but my NIV right here has a verse 41. It's not a big deal. It's just a numbering question. So, and having said these things, aping and aorist, he released the ecclesia, the mob, the crowd. This is not a church. He released the crowd. And so there you have it again, ecclesia being used the way people used it at the time of Luke. Well, we've finished chapter 19. Tomorrow for my patron video, I think I'm going to talk about some of the things that may have happened, speculations about Paul's time at Ephesus. And then on Monday, Lord willing, we will start Acts chapter 20.